unaccustomed as I am to impromptu things here, this is the CPOC committee meeting, and I understand there are no public comments. As there are none, do I hear a motion to approve minutes? All in favor? Minutes are approved. Craig Stewart, our new Linda Kleinbaum.
Just say a few words on
I know we'll be asking him if there are any changes to the work plan, but I think our Chief Operating Officer, Nuria Fernandez, would like to say a word.
Yes, good afternoon to all, and I just want to take this opportunity to introduce Craig Stewart as our new Senior Director for Capital Programs. Most of you know Craig. Craig started with the MTA back in 1985 with New York City Transit and has moved through several very challenging assignments under transit. His last assignment was Chief,
Senior Corporate Manager.
Senior Corporate Manager, working directly for the former President of New York City Transit, now Chairman CEO. Craig did cover very ably the capital plan amendment this afternoon, and he will be running the capital program oversight committee from this day forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You've been here longer than Jim Seymour?
28 years.
Is anyone in here?
You need to sit closer. Are there any changes to the work plan?
Yes. The update on Long Island Railroad and Metro North rolling stock programs that had been scheduled for July will instead be provided in the January 2014 CPOC due to procurements that are currently underway.
Moving on to New York City Transit, we'll hear from John O'Grady, but to introduce him, Fred Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just let me start by explaining to everybody the presentation you're going to hear today is a combined facilities and Sandy update, which this committee has not heard yet. But I want to explain a little bit of the changes that have gone on within New York City Transit Capital Program Management since October 29th. Clearly, Sandy had a significant impact on the entire organization, but it impacted our capital program because I had no choice but to immediately mobilize our current resources to help operations assess the damages that took place. And what you saw and what you've heard in the last couple of months is that we've sustained significant damage to our infrastructure. But I have the challenge still of delivering on our original 10 to 14 capital program. So to do that, slide 2, please. I want to make sure that we work towards those joint goals of continuing to meet our commitments for the 10 to 14 capital program as we roll out now our recovery program and work towards the mitigation program as well once that's approved. So what you see here is the organization change which took place within the Capital Program Management Department, where John O'Grady, who has presented to you before on the infrastructure side, now has the dual responsibility of maintaining the infrastructure program as well as the new Sandy organization, or Recovery and Resiliency Program, to repair the damage from Sandy. And with that, I'll turn it over to John for his first presentation for both. John O'Grady.
Thank you, Fred. Good afternoon, all. It's been quite a few years since I've presented at CPOC, so this presentation is intended to be just a general update of the infrastructure area. As Fred had mentioned, the addition of the Sandy work, so just a brief description on some of the Sandy work. And then I will also describe a couple of projects which have been presented previously at CPOC as a result of the various risk assessments that have occurred. Excellent. I'm sorry, just to go back. So the core infrastructure area is an area that has significant goals within it. Currently it is structured with about 110 projects in planning and design, which worth about $950 million, and in construction we have 36 projects worth some $880 million. A couple of those major projects are Mother Clara Hale, Mullery Square Event Plant within the line equipment area, Arthur Kill Station within the structures program area, and the Northern Boulevard Vent Plant. That represents approximately $400 million, those 4 projects, of the overall infrastructure and facilities area. So this is the core area that I had prior to the Sandy assignment. It has now been expanded with recovery and resiliency area. This is managed by Alok Saha, program officer. This area has hit the ground running, very aggressively issuing task orders for design, trying to deal as quickly as possible with the multitude of issues that came about as a result of the damage from the storm. We currently have 81 projects in design. 23 of those projects are in-house. 51 of them are by consultants. So we have 81 projects worth approximately $2 billion that we've managed to jumpstart since March of this year. Additionally, we currently have 8 projects in construction worth some $156 million. Some of the critical projects in 2013 and 14 are the Montague and Greenpoint tubes. We will get into them a little bit more in this presentation. Ingress hardening of 6 critical downtown stations. We have 6 stations which we know to be at risk during a storm event similar to Sandy. Similarly, 14 vent plant locations, and as well as the South Ferry Station complex. This is a slide that kind of speaks to the benign nature of how Sandy damage can be viewed. This is an aerial view of the Rockaway Flats. Essentially, as you go through, you get a feel for the damage that it really exists on the ground. Essentially, what you have here is a washed out embankment. The embankment along the Rockaway Flats is over 2.5 miles long. It essentially is just several feet above sea level, and the storm caused enormous damage to the embankment, where we had 2 breaches through the embankment, as well as significant compromised systems that support the running of the railroad to the Rockaways. Right now, the Rockaway service was restored as of the end of May through aggressive efforts with our contractor partner, and essentially what you have is the precursor type of project to how we are approaching the Sandy-related work. Essentially, we are making all efforts to jumpstart every component that is involved in the Sandy program and moving it forward as quickly as is possible, both in the design phase as well as in the construction phase. 2 of the major projects are two of our first under-river tubes which were damaged during Sandy are the Montague and Greenpoint tubes. The Greenpoint tube shutdown started several weekends ago. That work is being done mostly through our in-house forces. It is expected that the Greenpoint tube work will involve 12 weekends during this summer, as well as 5 weeks of shutdowns in 2014. Montague tubes, previously brought to this committee, is a 14-month total shutdown, and it's expected to return to service in early 4th quarter of 2012.
14.
I apologize. 2014. I kind of wished I was back in 2012. And Sandy hadn't happened by then. With the Montague tube shutdown, there's a slight. This slide gives you a side-by-side of the type of the way we're going about this work. We will be this week entering into contract with the contractor. They are being qualified as we speak, and we expect that they'll be getting the notice to proceed sometime this week. The shutdowns themselves will begin August 3rd. So the shutdowns were scheduled presuming we would be able to award this project, and thanks to the efforts through our procurement department and law department, we have successfully procured a very good contractor. The construction duration overall is 20 months, with the overall shutdown being 14 months. Construction management is going to be through a consultant construction manager, CCM. The Greenpoint tube is in-house forces taking this work on, recognizing the urgency of the work to be done. So the plan is for us to go in and deal with these first 2 tubes first, and then there'll be the work beginning in the subsequent tubes until we get to finishing the work in all 9 under-river tunnels that were damaged as a result of Sandy. With regards to the Greenpoint tube work, we have signal work will be done by a third-party contractor, as will the fan and pump work. The overall construction management will be by in-house forces. As we move forward, we start to look at what we need to deal with from a resiliency perspective. The overall transit system has a significant exposure from a storm event. Essentially, this map shaded in the different colors. We are looking to protect the red and the orange areas. Essentially, that represents the range or the flooding limits of a Category 2 storm. So we'll be looking to protect Transit's assets that fall underneath the areas of that map. For stations, that is these 6 underground stations. And these will be, for the most part, resiliency projects. Now, the effort to go ahead with this is pending an approved program amendment, which I know is being discussed. So these 6 stations are where we hope to begin the resiliency work sometime late August, early September. With regards to the 14 vent plants, that work as well will be starting in the 4th quarter of 2013, and we'll be taking these on one by one as we can get the designs done. Moving back to traditional infrastructure construction, this is a project, Mother Clara Hill, which has previously been discussed several times at CPOC. This is a project that had a risk assessment associated with it, where we aggressively in the design phase look to identify all risks, and then through the risk assessment process determine with a degree of certainty the accuracy of our ability to deliver that project within a certain defined time period. In this case, our time period was assuming a risk assessment confidence of 80% with a 37-month duration, and also to be able to deliver it within budget. Through the numerous presentations on this to the board, the one concern has always been the schedule on this job. At this particular point in time, the contractor is forecasting a January of 2014 completion. Transit's view is that this project is likely to extend out to May of 2014. The current contract substantial completion has been extended to October 2014, and 2013, and there are several AWOs which are currently under negotiation where it is likely the contract will be extended into the November 2013 timeframe. So this becomes an important project to discuss at CPOC, because from Transit's perspective, this job will be late relative to the contractor's anticipated delivery. We are doing everything we can to monitor this job, to push this project, to expedite this, the contract through the different stages of this project. If we move along, just as an FYI, this was a job that was a project that was identified using BIM, Building Information Modeling. That modeling helped us in several areas to identify and avoid several conflicts that you would have in running piping, HVAC systems, structural systems, etc. No, not because of the modeling itself, and not because they created an obstruction. In general, they were in the way of the excavation necessary for the installation of the pile foundations. As we speak, the project is for the most part, fully enclosed. Much of the work is happening within the facility now. The traditional electrical systems, HVAC systems, etc., are all being installed. We will probably, towards the end of this summer, enter into the beginning of our commissioning phase, and this is where we have historically struggled with our contractors. We are working with this contractor to develop a very sophisticated commissioning cycle, and we're hoping to be able to push this through in record time. But there still is the concern about a May completion. Now we'll talk the IEC.
Hi. Looking at the schedule, the IEC has reviewed the project schedule and work remaining and agrees with Transit's reforecast date of May 2014. Concerning the budget, due to the substantial completion date being extended, additional in-house support costs, construction support costs, and costs associated with change orders or AWOLs will be incurred. The IEC has reviewed the current available project contingency and has determined that there are sufficient funds remaining in the project budget to support Transit's revised date. Looking at findings and recommendations,
Commissioning has been identified as the primary risk to the schedule. The IEC recognizes Transit's continued efforts in working closely with the contractor to start the commissioning process now, as well as their plan to use a temporary power for testing in August. On the recommendations, additional emphasis should be placed on the contract to submit their outstanding cost proposals and complete the negotiated cost of the remaining 10 change orders or AWOLs. This would permit Transit to more closely track the remaining contingency and the possible effect on the overall project estimate at completion. That concludes our review. If there are no other questions, I'll turn it back to John.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Then we're ready, I think, for an update on subway car procurements. Mike Wesbrow.
No, we still have,
Oh, I'm sorry. So still more?
we just have a piece to finish up.
Yeah, they wanted to bring me back for round two.
Why not?
So for round two, I'm just going to speak very quickly about the Steinway Tube rehabilitation. This was a strategic effort by New York City Transit to make sure that all necessary work within the under-river tubes was being done while a major signal project was underway. So this was a project that was added to the program in order to take advantage of those general orders. We began the process of demolishing duct banks and rebuilding them approximately a year ago. And what you see in these slides here is an innovative construction technique where on the under-river tubes, one of your challenges in the different areas is how you're going to deliver concrete. You can use a slick line, pump down, or you can look for the shaft in order to drop the concrete in via the shaft. In this case, there was an area where the contractor was looking for an alternative method, and this is where, in a lot of our contracts, we refer to means and methods of construction. Sometimes that's not prescribed in the contract. That's the contractor's unique way of going about achieving the right result. In this case, the contractor decided to retrofit a concrete truck, make it into a high rail piece of equipment, carefully check out the tunnel clearances in order to see that he could be able to deliver the concrete down into the facility. And what you see on the slide on the right, or the view on the right, is the duct bank exposed on the left-hand side of the photo, concrete truck heading into the tunnel, and essentially that would be a poured surface, sometime towards the end of the work shift. Thank you. So, yes.
They're dropping the crane in a vertical access shaft, so you'll be able to put it on the track. And this is a picture of the back end from this side of the cement truck. This is the exposed, and you got rebar. You're ready to pour the concrete here to rebuild the duct bank. They've shielded this side so it doesn't get any damage during the construction. So, I mean, everybody that saw this saw the same thing you did, Susan, which is, oh my God. Loaded with concrete gets dropped in there. It's pretty heavy. That's the tightest clearance tunnel in the system, by the way.
Are there any other engineering marvels on which you wish to report?
This might be my last marvel of my career, this one right now. There's been a program of projects on the Culver Line for the last several years. The specific as you can see from this slide, there's about 7 or 8 different projects worth some $600 million that have been carefully coordinated, designed as separate entities but coordinated in design, and then even harder to coordinate during construction. The overall coordination of those projects has fallen underneath the project in the lower left-hand side, the C34763, the track signal and structural rehab of the Culver Viaduct. What you see in the next slide is some of the projects work underway. One of those jobs was the 10th Street substation. That was the project on the left. Essentially, you have a complete new electrical equipment lineup exhibited in this view. And then on the right-hand side, you have a view of the viaduct structure. But this is the underside view where this was a concrete encased structure where that has been netted for the last 15 years. And we're going along, we're removing the deteriorated concrete where it's necessary to be removed. And then we are actually applying a fiberglass, what we refer to as an FRP wrap, fiberglass reinforced wrap, to stabilize the concrete and make sure that it cannot fall in the future, so that when we're finally done, you'll have a clean surface as exhibited in the photo, and also then there will be no need for netting. The Culver Viaduct project itself, that I refer to as the overall coordinator, was the topside project. That's where we rebuilt the viaduct from the deck up, exposed the existing support deck, waterproofed it, fixed any structural issues. Then we proceeded to put in new track, new signals, new power. That project reached substantial completion December of last year, but this is a view of the benefits that was taken from previous risk presentations. The 80% confidence was an estimate of about $315 million. The final estimate, or the final cost, was $260 million. So there's significant savings. The project estimate, 80% confidence, was about 48 months. It was delivered within 45 months, and it was one of the best projects that my area has to speak about. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Then we have the update on subway car procurements, and Mike Wetherill will make that presentation.
Okay, thank you. Today I'll be presenting New York City Transit's update on the subway car capital program. This report focuses on three elements of the NYCT rail car program: the R188 purchase for the Flushing CBTC and number 7 line extension, the R179 purchase, which was awarded on June 4th, 2012, and the R211 purchase, which is in the design phase. The R188 car purchase is needed to provide the Flushing line CBTC operation and related service increases, as well as the extension of the number 7 line on Manhattan's far west side. Flushing 7-line trains have 11 cars. The line currently operates with 32 peak hour trains. With CBTC and number 7 west extension, there will be a need for 38 peak hour trains. Including spares, the overall fleet need on this line grows from 37 trains to 46 trains. At this time, it is anticipated that the new R188 trains will be accepted without impact to the number 7 line extension. The conversion of R142A to R188 cars will have a limited impact on the final completion of the CBTC ready cars. The R188 project is a mix of new 11-car trains, 8 in total, and converted R142A trains, 38 in total. Conversion of R142A cars was determined to be the most practical option because of their age, about 10 years, and better adaptability to the CBTC technology. The base contract, as you can see, was awarded on May 28, 2010 to Kawasaki. The option was awarded December 30th, 2011. The budget for the base is $116.5 million, and the option is $497.2, totaling to $613.7 million. To date, 2 new 11-car R188 trains and 1 converted train, which is 10 converted R142As and 1 new C car, have been delivered. These cars have been on test since January 2013. Additionally, as of July 2013, 90 cars are in production in Kawasaki's plants, and 70 cars are at the Kawasaki Final Assembly site in Yonkers, New York. Complete car qualification testing has started on the new cars at KRC's facility in Yonkers. Due to Superstorm Sandy, the Rockaway test track F5 was lost. R188 test plan had to be modified to on-site qualification locations. This change has added complexity to the accomplishment of testing and is estimated to impact the project by up to 6 months. This estimate is based on the progress to date.
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
With the Rockaway test track out, could you not have used another outdoor section of the system, of B division, to test these?
It's a good question, and that's what we actually went up north, and we used another section of track, the middle Y. But we had to do some conditioning of the rails, and we had to do a lot of work to get ready because, as you know, the cars came in January, and we had the storm in late September, so there was there was impact, and we had to do rescheduling because, of course, the Rockaway test tracks allows us to go with 12-hour days. But yes, we really did take what could have been a very large delay and decrease it down to about 6 months. Okay. Got some photos. And John O'Grady kind of showed the photos already. The only one we added was this amphibious craft that attempted to operate on the system during the storm. But the Rockaway test track was destroyed by Superstorm Sandy. Shown here are images of the revenue and test track damages. Rockaway passenger service has been restored, as we all know. However, the test track is undergoing final repairs to the signal circuits, which is forecasted to be completed by the end of July this month. The current test plan, though, is because we've done all this testing, we're not going to shift the testing over to the Rockaways. Instead, what we'll do is we'll do acceptance of the delivered train sets, and then we'll also do any required qualifications or high-speed testing that we normally do on the test track. Okay, shown here is the revised cumulative delivery schedule. This is the one we showed the last time we updated you for the new and converted R188 trains. Testing of the based orders, 2 new trains and 1 converted train, as I said, began January 2013, but at alternate locations as stated previously. Due to the change in the testing plans, the conditional acceptance of the base order trains is now anticipated to occur in November 2013. These will be available for the testing of the car-borne CBTC equipment in line with the CBTC project's date of December 2013. The first new option order train is now expected to be delivered in December 2013. So the new 8 trains to support increased number 7 line extension service requirements are now forecasted to be conditionally accepted in March of 2014, and this is still well in advance of the revenue service date of June 2014. Deliveries of all R188 trains, new and converted, was scheduled and the contract to be completed in January 2016. However, due to our testing delays, the final delivery of converted trains will be completed sometime between May and August 2016. The exact milestone date remains to be determined, pending the outcome of our qualification testing and our discussions with Kawasaki. In both cases, sufficient trains will be available prior to the revenue service date forecasted by the CBTC project of November 2016. And here's some photos of the R188 cars in production at the Kawasaki facilities. And as I said before, there are 70 cars at their final assembly location in Yonkers. And we've got some photos on the right side of those finished cars.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
I understand that CBTC is being installed on the number 7 line. You still have the 3 tracks to 2 track bottleneck between 33rd Street and Queensboro Plaza, allowing for the Javits Center station to maybe have, you know, a better track layout than Times Square does now. Is it just the CBTC that's going to get you from 32 to 38 trains per hour?
Primarily. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's, yeah, and of course we also mentioned that we have, yeah, we also mentioned that we're going, because of the 7 line extension, we're adding several more trains as well. So you're going to get not only, you're going to get greater service because of the frequency, but you're also going to get greater service. We're going to have more trains available. Okay.
No other questions or comments for the IDC project?
Are we going to do the 171 first? I'm flexible if you want to do that. Okay. The 188s? Yeah, and thank you for the question. Actually, what we did was we gave Kawasaki the go-ahead to continue production even though we had delays. So they're building up cars at their facility, and we shifted our inspections so that we could facilitate that for them because we wanted to have as little disruption to their production as we could. So we took our teams and went over and we inspected them right along, understanding that we're still testing. And you know, there's a little risk here as far as the changes that would have to be made, but we felt that it was important to keep our schedules. Okay, the R179. The R179 project was awarded on June 4th, 2012 to Bombardier Transit Corporation. The R179 purchase is for 300 60-foot subway cars, which are designed based on the successful R160 cars. The R179 cars are needed to replace the remaining 222 R32 and 50 R42 cars, the oldest cars operating on the B Division fleet. The purchase will also support plans for providing trains for anticipated service increases to various B Division lines, as well as the opening of the 2nd Avenue Subway Phase 1. The R179 program's master program schedule was approved on September 27, 2012. The preliminary design reviews were completed in January of 2013. Design reviews are ongoing, including reviews of the mock-ups, which we'll show you some photos of. Bombardier has recently noted in their last monthly report that there's a potential project delay, without citing specific causes for the delay. They previously noted the potential for a delay in part because of a strike in their La Pacatier tooling facility. NYCT has notified Bombardier that they are required to immediately provide details related to any causes for potential delays and provide a mitigation plan to address these issues, which they are in the process of doing. On the next page, you can see that we do extensive mock-ups. That's actually a wooden truck. But we've gone up and we do extensive design reviews to make sure that, first of all, everything's going to fit together, but also that the design is in keeping with what our initial intent was. So you can see these R179 mock-ups at the Bombardier facility. There's exterior interiors, truck, wheel assembly. We even proofed the bonnet. So these kind of mock-ups are our way of expediting our reviews and making sure that we get the product we're looking for. Well, as far as expediting this program, the design reviews we're doing with Bombardier are interactive type design reviews. And so we are expediting the design review process with them in order to ensure, first of all, that we are meeting the specification, but also that we are getting the two engineering groups together so that they're on the same page 100% through the design process. So we actually go through 3 design reviews, and we're actually leading into the final design review. But what we are doing as far as technology and expediting, I think, if I may interpret your question, what are we doing to identify ways of moving ourselves forward as far as intelligent cars and communications? We've been talking with Bombardier about, first of all, they're going to be using an Ethernet type of communications, which is the first time we've ever done it on any of our cars, but it's been successfully used in other railroads. But we're exploring with them ways that we can use that Ethernet to our advantage. Every component will have an IP address, and communications will be able to, we're hoping to communicate with the train remotely. Every train that we design, we look at opto, the ability to have a one-person train operation, but I'm not involved in any of the movement towards that. But we do.
Once we went to a full-width cab for the conductor and the operator, we have the ability. Even the R62s and the R62As were designed in a way that they could be converted to that. In answer to the other question that you asked, Chuck, I would like to say there's a balance between expediting orders and getting them done fast to get them on the property versus giving for the manufacturer as steady stream of production rate as possible. In some cases, it works against you. If you get all the cars in the property, you shut down a production line, and you go for a year and a half or 2 years without a production, they have to lay off that workforce and hire them back. The total costs of replacement of the fleet may be in excess of what it would be if you had a more steady state. And the same applies to buses as well. The nirvana for the industry has always been a steady state supply of rolling stock.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, on to the R211. Okay, NYCT is moving forward with the R211 car class design program with a strategic goal of enhancing the customer's experience with increasing operational efficiency and optimizing the total cost of the vehicle ownership. The overall need is to award the replacements for the R46 fleet in the 2015 to 2019 capital program. The R211 goals include providing world-class communications, a greener design, and increasing standardization of parts and components. The R211 program is in the design phase. In December 2012, NYCT awarded a design consultant contract to CH2M Hill. The contract is for technical consultant support, to support the necessary technical alternatives analysis and specification writing. The analysis and design process will lead to the technical specifications for the purchase of the new generation of NYCT vehicles proposed for a 2015 award. That concludes.
Chuck, if I can add, as we begin to look at these cars with this new architecture, that allows us to think about upgrading technology as the car goes through its life cycle. So it's not the communication system that you get on day one that you live with in year 20, but some ability as the car ages to, if you will, a concept of plug and play, if you will, being able to keep the state of the art up there and communicate. Communications is one area where perhaps that will work for us.
Anything further? Now for the IEC report.
Thank you. As far as schedule and budget goes, the IC reflects NYCT's comments about the effects of Superstorm Sandy. It's actually affected the qualification testing of the first units, and it has the effect of consuming all the float on the first train. Moving on to there's no budget issues as we see. Moving on to the issues, obviously the major concern is the R188 production, the completion of deliveries of the fleet, and the IC notes that NYCT and Kawasaki are working together to actually mitigate these. We see no issues with the R179 or R211 at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. Questions or comments? Then we'll move on to the update on bus procurements. Henry Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. Today we will briefly update you on our primary goals, as well as the status of our current bus contracts. And finally, we will provide you with our target dates to award all buses in the remaining 2010 to 14 capital program. Our mission is to provide the most reliable bus service for our customers by buying new buses that meet our duty cycle needs at the best value. Our goal is to replace buses that have exceeded their useful life and to provide the required number of buses to make daily service. We are achieving this goal by continuing to evaluate different manufacturers' fleet of buses. This has enabled us to qualify multiple vendors for competitive bids in the future. More builders participating in the bid process will result in a better pricing and better bus service. Also, where applicable, we would like to increase New York State content. In addition to qualifying more manufacturers, our purpose is also to find out what equipment and what combination of systems work better for us in terms of reliability, maintainability, cost, and warranty. We continually adjust our bus specifications as new technologies are evaluated. This chart shows the fleet size and makeup. New York City Transit has 4,426 buses. An MTA bus has 1,270 for a total fleet size of 5,696. Based on our current fleet, if we had a steady state replacement, it would be 475 buses a year. This chart shows the MDBF performance by age group. The new fleets purchased have been performing very well. The 12-month average system MDBF as of May 2013 is 5,007. This is higher than last year's record-setting end-of-year MDBF of 4,681. This slide shows we have approximately 1,400 buses older than 12 years of age. When all new buses in the approved capital program are in service, we'll still have 543 buses in the fleet past their useful life expectancy. This is about 10% of the total fleet. At the conclusion of the next capital program, 2019, we expect to have no buses over the age of 12 years. We are continuing to follow the procurement strategy put forward in the beginning of the capital plan. We are having great success with new manufacturers and now have multiple bidders for each type of bus we utilize. We have 2 bus manufacturers that have assembly plants in New York State, despite Daimler leaving the bus market. We still have to purchase. Yes. We have specialty fleets, so if you have Arctics, 2 Arctics carry the same passenger loading as 3 40-foot buses, and we've adopted them since 1998. We would have to increase our fleet size drastically if we went back from the position we took. I think it's a good decision to stick with the Arctics. Express buses are 45-foot. They carry 57 passengers, so we reduced the fleet size of express buses when we switched over in 1998. That would cost us more buses if we went back. If everything was a 40-foot standard bus, the fleet would be a lot bigger, and we'd need more facilities.
Do you have a problem in terms of maintenance or otherwise in having this variety of buses available?
It's more of a varied fleet in every depot, so you need to be educated and trained on the different types of buses by the different manufacturers, yes. It's not insurmountable, no. We still have to purchase 300 express buses, 331 Arctics, and 735 local buses, and we are not purchasing any hybrids in this capital plan. We have a need for buses in high-speed duty cycles where new diesel buses achieve similar fuel efficiencies and emissions profile. This table shows the status of all of our bus contracts, those completed and those yet to be awarded. We have 2 to be awarded and 3 to be solicited. Our plan is to buy approximately 2,500 buses. To date, we have received 1,171. I would like to explain why in the 4th year of the 5-year capital program we still have over half our fleet to purchase. As a result of our previously stated desire to increase competition amongst bus manufacturers and explore the use of different systems to improve overall bus reliability, we have undertaken an aggressive evaluation program across different bus types. We have evaluated the product of an additional express bus manufacturer and now have 2 approved bidders. Once awarded, we will be back on schedule for replacement cycles for expresses. We also have evaluated 2 low-floor articulated bus manufacturers, and we'll have 2 bidders for the upcoming purchase of Arctics, and we are on schedule for Arctic replacements. We have evaluated 3 manufacturers of conventional diesel local buses. We have not purchased local buses with conventional diesel since 1999. The requirements and the technology for the engine and major components have changed drastically. We chose to implement an extensive evaluation program to minimize the operational risk of a large purchase of over 1,000 buses. We are currently anticipating an award of 690 buses in October and November. This strategy, coupled with a large purchase of 1,650 buses from 1996 to 1999, has resulted in us being behind schedule. The evaluation process, however, was important because it enabled us to gather critical data on component and subcomponent reliability and performance in a relatively short period of time. Also, we were able to incorporate this into our bus specifications that are currently part of our bidding process. This important added step was the main reason for the delay in our delivery of buses in the 2010 to 14 capital program. To alleviate this shortfall, we currently have multiple bus procurements in place to speed up this process. This was the appropriate path to take at the time in order to assure and benefit from better performance and competitive procurements. I will now update you on bus contracts that have recently completed delivery. We recently completed delivery of 328 Nova Arctics. This purchase supplied buses for Arctic route conversions, Q44 and the M60, SBS routes M34 and the B44, and scheduled replacements. This fleet was the result of a successful evaluation fleet of 90 buses in 2010. Nova opened up a New York facility and has supplied buses for 3 contracts. Last year, we reported at CPOC that the MDBF for this fleet was 5,509, which was lower than expected due to in-service failures. A campaign was initiated by the vendor at no cost to the Transit Authority, and we now have an MDBF of 7,228. We have reached another milestone. This new flyer is the second evaluation fleet for low-floor Arctics. We have now competition for future Arctic purchases. Prior to receiving low-floor Arctics, our high-floor Arctics MDBF was only 2,197 in 2009. As of May 2013, the 90 new flyer Arctics have an year-to-date MDBF of 6,848. And all the Arctics in our fleet have a combined MDBF of 4,075. The remaining high-floor Arctics are dragging down our performance and are due to be replaced in 2015. For express buses, we awarded a purchase of 54 MCI coaches in July of 2012. This purchase was left over from the 05 to 09 capital plan. The delay was because MCI was in Chapter 11 and MCI was a sole source. We have since evaluated and approved the second manufacturer and now have competition. The FTA contract for 74 buses was originally awarded in December of 2011 to Daimler, but Daimler exited the marketplace, and therefore we signed a contract to New Flyer in July of 2012. We also exercised an option for another 15 buses in November of 2012 due to increased CNG service requirements. These 89 buses bring the total New Flyer CNG fleet to 488 buses, delivered between 2011 and 2013. The total 488 New Flyer fleet has an MDBF of 12,429. This performance is exceptional as compared to the legacy fleet at 3,700, which is eligible to be replaced in the next capital plan. We are continuing to utilize the capital investments in infrastructure at our CNG facilities by purchasing these buses. We now have our largest fleet of CNGs to date at 771. This chart illustrates the performance of the fleets provided in the capital plan versus our legacy fleet. The year 2011 was a low performance year for regional bus with an MDBF of 3354. In 2012, we improved our performance by implementing an aggressive maintenance campaign, and the legacy fleet's improvement drove the system's performance to 4681. In 2013, the new bus fleet size was enough to push the performance even higher to a current 5,377. For all remaining buses to be awarded, we have to achieve a significant milestone. This is the first time that we have competition by more than one manufacturer every bus type, despite the fact of losing Daimler to the marketplace. Our next 2 contracts will be for 300 express buses and 690 40-foot standards. This slide shows remaining buses approved in the 2010 to 14 capital program that need to be solicited. The 45 standards will replace end-of-life buses, and the 75 R6 will be for route conversion. When these two procurements are delivered, there will be no local buses over 12 years of age in MTA Bus Company. Let me say that over the last several years, we have been taking the proper steps in trying to qualify more vendors for each type of bus by testing their products and systems under actual conditions. We have increased service reliability through improved MDBF. If you have any questions or comments, gladly answer them. Yes.
Appropriate time for the question. Have you given any thought to whether or not a useful purpose would be served in having smaller buses available for more localized service for areas such as Co-op City, for areas around Country Club and the like, where you don't really need a big bus to do it, and the big bus has trouble navigating?
Yes, the state controller made that recommendation, and our schedule department was looking into that. So it's under investigation.
Small minds
Small
thinking the same track.
buses. Yes.
But in most places that have done that, Chuck, they couple it with different wage rates for the bus operators. And when you take a look at the entire life cycle cost of varied fleets, in some cases the additional monies that you pay for different parts and materials and the fleet changes, the facility changes you may have to make are such that it may not be the cost differential that it looks at face value. But it starts really with the standpoint from a service planning standpoint. Can you provide the level of service and meet your loading guidelines the way you want?
What I was really focused on was there are obviously streets that people cannot navigate with the larger buses. This makes help with that.
Anybody else? IEC?
Thank you. Regarding the schedule and budget, the IC has observed the schedule adjustments with the contract awards, but we do recognise that it's due to the increase in demands on the award process. On to the issues. Obviously, the timeliness of the contract award is an issue to be concerned, because it brings into operating older buses for less reliable buses for longer. Limited competition is obviously an industry-wide issue, which NYCT is trying to address. Finally, we'd like to say that we agree with the overall strategy to increase competition and improve reliability of the vehicles. Thank you.
Okay, any questions or comments? We're ready to move on to tab 3, an update on small business development programs. Anil Patel and George Cleary. Mr. Patel and Cleary?
Yes. Good afternoon. This is Anil Patel. I'm here to give you an annual update on the small business development programs. It's a two-part presentation where George Cleary will talk about the outreach and development of the participants. We started our small business mentoring program back in July of 2010, Tier 1. It's a July to July fiscal year program. We have prime contracts up to $1 million in this program. We have stair replacements, station enhancements, bus washers, etc. Those kind of projects. We are on track for the years 1, 2, and 3 to achieve our goal of $47.5 million. To date, in years 1, 2, and 3, we have awarded 78 projects to 59 firms, amounting to $43.7 million, of which we have completed 49, either substantially completed or closed out 49 projects, worth $25.8 million. Our year 4 goal, award goal, is an additional $22.5 million. Early on in the program, we had set ourselves some goals to help the small businesses for these elements of the work: payments, awards, closeout, change orders, submittals, and RFIs. Here on this slide, we show what our performance to date has been. As you can see, in a few areas, we need to do some improvement, and there have been discussions with agencies for that as to how we can better the process. I wanted to point out that as far as closeout is concerned, once a contractor finishes all the punch list items and have submitted all their documentation, from that day on and until the day a final acceptance is issued by the agency, that is the period we count. We have achieved our goal of increasing our awards 50% year over year to date. We exceeded our state MWBE goal of 20%. We have achieved almost 80%, of which 30% awards have been to DBE firms. There have been 0 claims to our MTA payment guarantee program. 18 of the 59 firms to date have been awarded 2 contracts, of which 1 firm, Zion Contracting, has been recently awarded the 3rd contract so far. So therefore, developing firms with skills who can bid on MTA projects and larger projects, develop a pool that can bid on larger projects for the MTA. We are growing these firms. This is a second project, a photo of the second project that Zion Contracting finished. It's a success story. They finished the bus washers here at Casey Stengel Bus Depot. This slide demonstrates the competitive bidding we have been having in the Small Business Mentoring Program. Each of the year statistics are there. Since we have awarded 78 projects, estimated at $46.8 million, and our bids have been $42.2 million. Next slide gives an update on the Small Business Federal Program, where we have contracts, larger contracts, up to $3 million. Participation in this program is up to 3 years. In this program, we have also established an MTA Bond program, which would assist the contractors to increase their bonding capacity. There are 18 pre-qualified firms to date in this program, of which half of them have graduated out of the Small Business Mentoring Program Tier 1, where we saw that they had better financial capacity and had the experience to do larger projects. Year 1 and 2 cumulative goal for this program has been $15 million. To date, our year 1 goal was $5 million. We have awarded 3 projects worth about $4 million. So our year 2 goal remains $10 million to be awarded by July 2014. Next slide is the first project that we awarded in the Small Business Federal Program to Urban Group. It is at the East Side Access project site at Madison Yards, where Urban Group is doing the duct banks between the escalators going from the mezzanine to the concourse level, and this duct banks will house the power and the communication lines. With that, George Clory will talk about now the outreach and development of the participants in these programs. George?
Thanks, Emil. Good afternoon. My name is George Cleary, Deputy Director for the Small Business Mentoring Program, and I'm responsible for the outreach and business development. As Emil had mentioned, we have 59 firms that have currently been awarded projects. We continue our outreach effort to small businesses, and there are currently 135 firms pre-qualified for the SMB program, and this chart illustrates the number of firms and counties in which they are located. It also shows the breakdown of the MWBE firm certification. Next slide. the Small Business Mentoring Program, loan program, historically, there's been a lot of impediments regarding small business to the access to capital, and with the lack of capital, it prohibits smaller firms from growing their businesses and securing appropriate finance. With that said, the MTA and Carver Federal Savings Bank formed a powerful alliance designed to provide loan to qualified small business mentoring program construction contractors. And since the program's inception, there have been 14 loans approved, total amount of $1.3 million. We have had 0 defaults, and we currently have outstanding loan balance of $122,000. And the loan amount that is available to the contractors in the program, if you're in the SBMP program, it's up to $150,000, and with the federal program, it's up to $900,000. Okay. We also, in the program, we also have a training program, and this program is targeted at providing participants with key knowledge that they will need to bid and complete MTA construction projects safely, on time, and within budget. The small business program it's a 10-week program that guides firms on how to do business with the MTA while enhancing their technical capacity and business development training. As you can see, the courses highlight some of the courses that we have in place. Training course is offered twice a year, in the spring and the fall, and the next 10-week session starts in September. Looking ahead, we have the Tier 2, which is set to kick off in July of 2014. Tier 2 is for candidates who have successfully graduated from the Small Business Mentoring Program, which is Tier 1, and the firms participating in the Tier program for 2 years can bid on projects up to $3 million. Okay? We are very excited about the program, and as we move forward, we are committed to developing our contractors. We are developing training and business resource support, and we're looking at several areas, bond surety program. We're also looking at the transition of union labor resources, back office support, as well as business planning. On behalf of Mike Garner and Ron Separetto, we'd like to thank all the agency personnel who have worked hard to continue the success of the Small Business Mentoring Program as well as the Small Business Federal Program.
Thank you. Questions or comments on that part of it? Then we'll move on to MWBE participation. Gwen Harleston will make the presentation.
Thank you. DBE participation is currently at 16%. We're slightly below MTA's DBE goal of 17%. The MWBE overall participation is currently at 30%. MBE participation is at 19%, while WBE participation is at 11%. MWBE overall participation continues to exceed the MTA's MWBE goal of 20%.
Any questions or comments? Mike, do you have something?
Yeah, this is briefly, and as George indicated, that the achievement of the small business mentoring programs and our achievement of goals is really a team effort. The MTA has brought into this program. There's been a lot of hard work, and just last week Tom and I spoke at a conference down in Jacksonville, Florida. And basically, the MTA's programs are now being viewed upon as national models, so much so that APTA wants us to come to Chicago in September to talk about our MWDB strategies. Also, I want to give a quick shout out to this motto that was created Bill Goldstein when he was the president and CEO at the SCA, and Bill Howell, who is an advisor to this administration on MWBE efforts, of giving us a template to import the program, to grow the program, and to flourish it. So thank you.
I'm glad you're here, Mike. This is a little off the agenda, but it's come up at various points during the day at committee meetings, in printed committee reports as well as in the colloquy, where operating agencies state, and I don't remember the exact words, they are waiting for guidance on MWBE goals.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? Because they didn't seem to know.
Well, that means basically the goal-setting process is based upon individual contracts, and it's based upon the availability of firms in the marketplace in order to assign a accurate goal. And so, although we have an annual goal, but the goals are assigned on each project based upon the availability of firms in the marketplace. So when agencies send us their goal requests, we are analyzing what the scope of works are versus the availability of MWDB firms in the marketplace in order to assign a goal.
I think I understand that, except my rejoinder to that answer is it was given it in various forms during the meetings was, well, isn't Executive Order 10 guidance enough?
That's the overall goal.
Yeah.
But goals are once again assigned on individual contracts based upon the availability in that area. For example, if there's a project in which there are little or no MWDB firms in the marketplace, then that goal would either be waived or reduced. And so although there is an overall goal of 20%, as we all know, but the goal is based upon individual projects.
The agency head, or whoever was speaking, can't have it both ways. If we have a goal of 17 or 20%, and that's a composite of all the individual project goals.
Yes.
If you're below that, you've got to make it up someplace else to get to the 17 or the 20% goal.
Right.
So if they want relief on a particular contract because there is little or not as much as the 20% goal, then Michael's people have to weigh in and say that, but it's in the context of how will that affect the overall achievement of the overarching goal.
Right.
Is that what you were intending to say?
Yes, it is.
Ah, good. If that can be communicated to effectively to everybody who's in charge of this at the operating agencies, because reading the reports gives rise to the idea that, well, this is kind of discretionary. It isn't.
No, it's not.
Well,
it's not.
I'll make sure they understand.
Thank you.
As CEO, I'll make sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim.
The question that came up was on it, when we go to vote on a procurement, there's a statement in there that the goals for MP will be okayed. The question came up is, why can't they tell us what the goals are for that contract before we okay the procurement?
It's possible, and if and only if the agency provides us with the scope of work or the trades associated with that work, we can then assign the goal prior to it coming to the board to be approved.
Because that was the question, am I right?
Yep.
And the problem with it is, I think you need to communicate, or somebody needs to communicate to the agencies that they have to cooperate with you rather than leave that line blank saying essentially, we don't have that number yet from you. And then we get it on a procurement and we're missing a vital piece of information.
Well, in any case, the chairman and CEO has already indicated he would communicate that, and that is good enough for me.
That's good enough for me.
Can I add one other request?
Susan.
We're talking about all of these things, and I recognize that there's some contracts that you're unable to assign a goal to for a variety of reasons, usually that there aren't any minority contractors in that thing, or that it's a contract without a potential for subdivision into a subcontract, something like that. What we see on our staff summaries is it ranges for a variety of terminologies, but it often just says that there was not a goal assigned. But that could mean you haven't gotten around to it, or it could mean that you really didn't make an assignment because there's no assignment that can be made. It would help us to know what the reason is for there not to be the assignment. And if you really can't make an assignment, at least that lets people know that there are no minority providers, and that might stimulate some minority firms to go into that line of business.
Okay. If we are done with MWBE business participation, then we're ready to move on to Craig Stewart again in tab 4 for capital program status.
Thank you. I'm going to provide the status of agency-wide 2013 commitments and completions through June. Commitments through June, the MTA planned a total of 37 major commitments. 21 have been or are forecast to be delivered on time, while 16 others are forecast to be late. In terms of dollar value, the most significant commitment delays were from Eastside Access contract, 2 Herald Structures contracts, and 2 New York City Transit bus procurements. In completions, through June, the MTA planned a total of 25 major project completions. 17 have been or are forecast to be delivered on or near the goal, while 8 others are forecast to be late. Completion delays were primarily from a New York City Transit station project, the New York City Transit track program, a Fulton Center project, an East Side Access contract, and an MTA bus depot project. Dollar-wise, agencies have completed nearly $1.8 billion and currently forecast that by year end they will achieve 79% of the overall completion plan. This 21% year-end shortfall is due mainly to a slip in the Eastside Access Queens Board Tunnels and Structures contract in 2014, valued at $768 million. The original scope of that contract will actually be completed on time, but additional scope was transferred from another contract with the effect of delaying the overall substantial completion. That's it.
That concludes report on capital program status. Any other comments or questions? If there are none, a motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor. The meeting is adjourned.
Okay. Getting my feet wet.
You know, I tell you, the world is round.
Well, it does seem like we're running into the same thing once we make a circle.
Right. I'm glad everybody
picked up on the change in the meeting, and you got the raising of the Here, you can take my book, because I have to step out. How you doing? How you doing? Good to meet you. How you doing? Good to meet you. We can start with the committee, but make an appointment to see me. I'll be glad to talk to you.
Okay, awesome.
Sure.
Thank you.
Just call Marissa.
Okay.
During Cruz, and we'll set up a meeting.
All right.
Thank you.
You're all coming closer, I hope, right?
You know, to the cameras, it looks like there's nobody here. 3 o'clock.
Okay, we're good?
Hello down there.
Apparently I'm here. What? Oh, I'm not leaving. I never would leave. We've got to have it.
Okay.
Whoops.
So you're fiddling with the schedule, fine.
Good timing.
Okay. Okay. On what we've been discussing today.
Well, that's good. We need a few fires, right?
The chairman has asked me to preside over this meeting as well. So
Make
this,
some new committee assignments, if there are any, in August. I wanted to continue through, so. Okay.
so this meeting of the Corporate Governance Committee is called to order. Are there any comments from the public? Hearing none. Let's move on to approval of minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. To make a presentation on changes in the board meeting schedule and committee structure, something of no small import to our institution and its board, as well as to the public. Who's making the presentation? Kathy?
I'm making the presentation on the change to the board meeting schedule. As you all know, last year, for the first time, we took a vote to move from 11 meetings per year with a break in the month of August to 8 meetings per year, which roughly translated into about every 6 weeks. There have been some issues with respect to that board schedule. I think there have been concerns in terms of the timeliness of data. There's been concerns in terms of the lags that are created as far as the procurement staffs are concerned. And I think just generally a preference to go back to the way things were before. So this staff summary proposes going back to the 11 meeting per year schedule beginning next year in 2014. So we would again meet every month except for the month of August. We would continue to try, when possible, to schedule the meetings of committees that don't meet every month, diversity, audit, governance, for Wednesday mornings to make this day somewhat less long than it's been today. So we're going to continue to look for opportunities to do that. We're also, as opposed to the chairman's forum idea, which we had put in the staff summary last September, we're going to go back to the idea of having president's forums, which are a little bit more agency specific, and again, we would begin doing that in the next year in 2014. So that's basically the sum and substance of the staff summary. The staff summary also attaches as an appendix the various internal corporate governance documents, so our bylaws, corporate governance guidelines, the changes that need to be made to our own internal guidelines to be able to effectuate this change. So that's basically it.
Motion made.
Does Mr. Merber have a comment?
Yes, I do have a comment. I would like to thank both the current chair and the former interim chair for being terrific.
Well, truth be told, there were two strong proponents for going to the current schedule we're under, and I was one of them, and so was Bob Bergen. But it just, for a whole host of reasons, it didn't pan out the way we thought. So.
I have a picayune question.
Yes.
In the staff summary, it says that the operating agencies will resume holding president forum meetings at which members of the public can answer questions to senior management.
Yes.
I believe they meant that.
Okay, I know it often went that way, but I didn't think that's what you meant. No, I think you'll find that most of the board members ended up more confused by trying to figure out, I mean, we still had to deal with the data on a monthly basis, and it was confusing. So we're all glad, kind
Plus,
of.
I think it extended the meetings.
Yes.
Probably.
There was more information to get caught up.
Yes, yes.
And you know, many times our information just wasn't in sync, so it's very difficult to sort of get ahead of things or stay on top of things. Is there anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
It passes. Second, the review and approval of certain MTA policies, also action items.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. What I would like to do today is to introduce a revision to our all-agency procurement guidelines, and it has to do with our AWOs, that is the additional work orders. Like death and taxes, as you all know, with a program as large as ours, it's inevitable that we're going to have change orders. And for the past 28 years or so, the policy, and specifically I'm referring to Section 13 in the guidelines, the policy was established that all change orders in excess of $250,000 had to come to the board. And then any changes that were $50,000, if it had reached 15% of the adjusted contract value. When we took a look at identifying potential efficiencies, given the large number of contracts that we're managing, we've got $6 billion still left to be awarded, of about 260 contracts in this capital program. Plus, we have the Sandy work, as you all have heard today, the $4.7 billion in recovery and $5.8 billion in mitigation. We thought, okay, what are some areas where we can find some efficiencies? And clearly, this one is one to be considered. In looking at 28 years at 250, if we were to take the inflation rate and the engineering news records construction cost index, which would have increased that value to about 170%, putting it, what was valued 28 years ago at 250 would now be 758,000. So we thought that the best way to not only bring in the efficiencies, improve the time that it takes us to approve contracts, which in turn results in savings, because then the contractors have certainty that decisions will be made and they don't have to finance the cost of contracts till we make the decisions, that we would recommend to increase that number so that it will now be normalized to today's value. So the recommendation is that contracts, change orders in excess of $750,000 be brought to the board for approval. Those that are between $250 and $750 will continue being approved by the agency presidents.
I'd like to make an amendment or a modification to provide simply that those that are in the former sum, which I believe is between $250 and $750, will still be reported to the board pretty much the way you have the bus changes reported for information purposes. And my reason for doing so is, forgive me, transparency and disclosure.
Absolutely.
It seems to me we ought to do that.
As an information item,
Yeah.
not as an action item.
Yeah.
And if there's a problem, the person can raise it then. But otherwise, off it goes.
Fantastic. And as a matter of fact, that's an excellent suggestion and something that we had discussed internally. So we will use the form of CPOC, which I think is the most appropriate for us to provide the updates on what has transpired on these contracts. Okay? Thank you very much. We need an action. This
As
is-
amended.
Anyone else? Is there, as amended, someone to move this?
I move it.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The item passes. Do I,
To adjourn?
oh,
Not yet.
All right, we just have one other action item on regarding policies. It's a small revision to the all-agency travel and business expense policy. Again, it's a non-substantive change, just redirecting our employees to a more useful website to provide them information about what their travel limitations are.
Motion
everybody
made.
okay? Ready for this? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
The item passes. If there is nothing else, a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Thank you.
Second, all in favor? Meeting's adjourned.
Let me know which committee you're.
See you Wednesday.
You and I should talk.